Here's some helpful things that I found useful in being authentic, living an authentic life, being true to myself, and not being a puppet on strings pulled by other people. It's really important to understand evolutionary psychology, like the origins of our actions. Where do they come from? What motivates us? And do those same principles apply today? And what you find is that, for example, I'm really surprised at how many people are very get a little bit defensive about being radically honest. Oh, I can never be radically honest, with people I don't know. I can never be radically honest. It's rude. Or I can never be radically honest because it makes me uncomfortable. And where does this need from approval come from? And if you go back into the time when the society wasn't westernized and industrialized and capitalized, and we lived in a tribal communities, the need for approval was very essential in order to survive. Because if you didn't get approval from your tribe mates, you were either ostracized from the tribe, and then you could not survive out on your own. The resources available would be constricted for you because that would be a form of punishment. And it really was tied into one survival instinct, that you learn to evolve and adapt your behavior in order to garner the most approval, because this ensured your survival and the succession of your offspring and species. And so it's very innate and ingrained in us, and most of us don't realize that, and we tend to blame ourselves for altering our personality based on what gets approval, what doesn't get approval. And when we come to the realization that today in Western civilization, it's no longer necessary. It's no longer necessary to be so dependent on other people's approval, what they think of you. To a certain degree, yes, for a job and stuff like that. But even then, it can be curtailed or modified to find a job that you don't have to put on a mask. You don't have to be fake or fraudulent to... you could just be yourself. You could be authentic. So, thankfully, our society and culture is set up in such a way where you could survive, you can put food on your table, you can ensure your existence without needing to be so dependent on approval like we were in tribal days. And this is liberating, because once we realize that, we can kind of pull the weeds of what we've been conditioned with from a very young age. We've been conditioned with, or not pull the weeds, but cut the strings. Because other people know about this evolutionary psychology, and naturally it's the easiest way to control, manipulate, and influence people through approval or disapproval. We don't even realize it oftentimes on a subconscious level, but just even the way someone might look at us with an unapproving glance. I can't believe you just said that. Or body language, or just outright disapproval. So on a subconscious and conscious level, we learn very young age to manipulate and alter our personalities to that which is most accepted and widely received, because of this because of the way humans have evolved. So, and everyone from parents, teachers, the media, advertisers, corporations, politicians, all realize that this is such a cheap and effective way to pull someone's strings, to control someone, is to give approval or take away approval. And you see it with parents and how they raise their children. Oh, Johnny, you did so good. I'm so proud of you. That's such a nice job. And it gets, that kind of thing is like a crack for children, because it gets them hooked on going outside of themselves instead of internally being motivated and driven and accentuating their individuality. So the thing to really, the first step in breaking free from these bonds or chains is awareness. Just to be aware of the way we might say things in conversations, the way we dress. Are we doing it for ourselves, or are we doing it for external gratification and to please other people? And we all suffer from this from one degree to another. And it's just, again, it's that gradual progression of weeding out the areas in your life where you're externally dependent. This takes practice in order to wean ourselves off of caring so much about what other people think. Now, oftentimes it can be an effective tool, what other people think, in our own personal growth and spiritual growth. But what we want to try to do is wean ourselves off of that as an egoic gratification. So we use other people's opinions of us as a mirror for egoic reflection to feel, oh, I feel good, I feel bad. And what you'll find, that's a roller coaster ride, because some days it's sunny, some days it's not, some days people approve, and some days, they disapprove. And to create a more of a stable strength, a strong foundation in which our identity exists. And it does take practice, and some deliberate practice is often very helpful. I went to this one seminar where we would have people sitting down in chairs and then people standing up, and we would rotate. So we'd stand in front of someone, and the goal of the person sitting in the chair was just to be completely and totally honest, radically honest about how they saw us, what their opinion was, what their judgments were, what their basically just to shower us with disapproval. And it was such a refreshing thing, and you could see people just automatically cower and and just kind of shrink spiritually within based on what people were saying. But I thought this was such a liberating exercise because it conditions us, it's practice to not really care, because it's just someone's opinion. And I love when I'm radically honest with someone and they go, oh my God, how could you say that? And that's so wrong, and that's so hurtful, and that's wrong. And I'm like, it's just my opinion. It doesn't mean it's absolutely true. It doesn't mean it's not true, but it's just an opinion. And what we find is people are weak, areas that you're weak within, we're more susceptible to what other people say. But the funny thing is we blame the other people for making us feel bad. We say, oh, you hurt me, you made me feel bad, how could you say that? Instead of taking personal responsibility and say, whoa, thank you for shining the light in an insecurity, a personal insecurity I have with myself. I need to do some work within and strengthen that so I'm not so affected when someone throws a dart and hits that spot. And then what you find is because most people do not know who they are. They do not know, just have any real sense of depth and identity and connection with their spirit, with their psyche, whatever you want to call it, because we're so used to being pulled by puppet strings and other people conditioning and molding us in the form, in like a clay, in the form that we want. And when we break free from that, a whole new world opens up, and you feel a sense of liberation. Yeah, you might have less friends, but the friends you do have will have a better quality and depth to them, because you are advertising who you really are. And that confidence that comes from being authentic and being true to yourself is really contagious. So again, like with anything, small baby steps, and just going out and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to practice being disapproved of. There would be times like I would just go and I would, if there were a lot of people walking out in a public place, I would just go and hug a tree and start talking to the tree, and people would be looking and staring and talking amongst themselves, just to practice not caring. And then once we strengthen that, man, you're so free. It's so peaceful and exciting way to live one's life. Thank you very much for listening. Your comments, subscriptions, and ratings are greatly appreciated. Have a great day. Bye-bye.